How can you not? How can you not love this movie? This was the moment I realized I was in love with this film, which was a feeling that seemed to repeat itself in every scene because this movie is goddamn adorable.
This is Scott Pilgrim, y'all.
I gave up monetization on this video because I played that song, and I don't even care because that was so worth it. Hi, how are you? How you guys doing? I basically just smiled the entire time I was putting this together, so needless to say, I love Scott Pilgrim, and I want to have its tiny, weird-haired Scott Pilgrim babies. Turn down for what? Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is a 2010 film from Edgar Wright, adapted by Michael Bacall. Wait, whoa. That's the kid from Free Willy? Shit. And yeah, he's still acting and appeared in Inglourious Bastards while writing other movies like 21 Jump Street. So he has kind of the perfect career post Free Willy, which no one really in that movie can also say. And to be perfectly upfront, I know that Edgar Wright and Michael Bacall actually share the co-writing credit on this film, but I don't really know how that went down at all, and I can't really find anything explaining it, so he might have written a first draft and Edgar had thrown it in the pool, and then maybe there was a whole new thing. I don't know. I'm sorry. I wish I knew. Somebody clear this up. Anyway, it's adapted from the series of graphic novels by Brian Lee O'Malley, and apologies ahead of time, but I'm going to be focusing entirely on the movie and spending absolutely zero attention on how it relates to the graphic novel. And yes, I understand that they deviate at key plot points, and you may have one or even more than one opinions on how the book and or film totally defecates inside of your heart with reckless and somewhat bombastic abandon. But I will be sticking with the film and talking about it as a singular piece of media and entertainment. Whew. Got that out of the way. When I did my review of The World's End, I focused on the layers that the film exists on, and I don't really want to repeat myself in the same way, so I don't think that that's the most important thing about this film in particular, though Scott Pilgrim vs. the World certainly exists on a whole host of layers, as every Edgar Wright film inevitably does. But no, I want to talk about how Scott Pilgrim is the worst hero ever. Like, ever. I mean, he's a literal anti-hero, especially as it pertains to cinema's biggest heroes, because he never does the one thing that every hero in a movie must do.
Make a f***ing decision.
He does not. Like every scene, he makes not a single decision, and just this one fact will change your entire experience while watching the movie.
You were in my dream. I dreamt that you were delivering me this package. Is that weird?
It's not weird at all.
It's not.
He's always asking someone else to make his decisions for him because he's scared to make a mistake.
2 gin and tonics, please.
I thought you didn't drink.
Only on special occasions. Why did you want one?
He's the hero of this movie, and yet he has absolutely zero agency over its plot. But I can blow your mind one further, because Scott Pilgrim, when viewed through the lens of his bouquet of family and friends, actually becomes the perfect cinematic hero.
Yo, check it before I wreck it.
His friend Wallace represents the witty one-liners of a cool action hero. His sister Stacy represents his conscience, always trying to lead him down a path of righteousness. Knives Chow represents his own insecurities, ergo explaining his inability to do the right thing and break up with her for more than half the movie. And Ramona represents all the spontaneity he wishes he had, but also wishes that same spontaneity didn't totally freak him out. Cause Scott is totally incapable of being spontaneous because he cannot make a single decision. It's like a theme, like a metaphor. This is one of those films you can pay absolutely too much attention to, and it rewards you every step of the way. But I just kind of realized I should hit the pause button and pump the brakes for a moment and talk about the actual plot here. If you haven't seen it, you're probably curious, but additionally, you're probably about to roll your eyes when I say this, because Scott Pilgrim is a 20-something, do-nothing, be-nothing Canadian doofus who just happens to be proficient in hand-to-hand combat and totally just learned the baseline from Final Fantasy II like a motherfucker boss!
Scott, you are the salt of the earth.
Oh, thanks.
Also, bread makes you fat.
No, why would I get fat?
Bread makes you fat.
Bread makes you fat?
When the movie starts out, he's suffering from a lot of stress as it relates to a former breakup with someone who went on to become famous, and he has then decided to date a high schooler. But like an idiot, outside of the high schooler thing, but like an idiot, he meets a girl he likes just enough not to break up with his current high school girlfriend, but enough to date her as well at the same time. Scott? It's a hero. It's kind of obvious that Ramona realizes this from the start, but she still just kind of puts up with it, which is kind of weird when you think about it, until you realize that they're drawn to each other because they make a lot of the same mistakes, like having super famous exes. There's like a mirror, it's like duality. That's a word. Is there gonna be a test? Scott and Ramona are basically kryptonite for each other because they codependently basically threaten to swallow the whole lot of them, family, friend, and foe. I mean, their relationship kills 7 of them, which is a theme that Edgar Wright likes to play with, and while we're on the subject, I've seen a lot of comments warning me off from doing an episode in either Hot Fuzz or Shaun of the Dead because, quote, unquote, there's nothing else to be said about those films. Challenge accepted. Shaun of the Dead is a story about a codependent relationship so toxic that it kills literally every single one of their friends and family, leaving them the only ones standing alone as they ever were. Hot Fuzz is a commentary on American action cinema where the cops are portrayed as executioners more than civil officers, so while the murderer is portrayed as a horror movie, and the big climactic finale contains no actual death because that's what a police officer is actually supposed to do, and not that f***ing bullshit you watch on CBS. Sorry, I was showing off. Back to the evil exes, and this is a metaphor that's absolutely worth discussing, and it's a metaphor that obviously originated from the book, but this story goes super over the top with it. Because all 7 exes represent part of ourselves, the people from our past that want to control our future, and she has, well, 7 of them, and that is weighing on her on a daily basis. And I think when you actually consider the ins and outs of that particular sort of controlling metaphor, the movie takes on a much, much darker tone in the face of such a silly and bombastic and crazy over-the-top acted set piece. At face value, this seems like a film about a super weird and morally questionable love triangle between 3 mild-mannered Canadians, if not for the ludicrous and blissfully unexplained 7 major video game influenced fight scenes that take this film from awesome story to
caffeine-engorged masterpiece.
And somehow this all works because the glue holding it together is some of the most well-staged visual gags you can stomach. No, you made out with the Blu-ray of the movie. I didn't. That weren't me. I don't. What Blu-ray? Just to get this out of the way, as I know you're all waiting for it, let's just do a but did you know lightning round.
But did you know?
But whenever the moon is shown in the movie, it is full because the backstory for Ramona's 3rd evil ex, Todd, the vegan, punched a hole in it for her. So, there you go.
But did you know
that Michael Cera is such an accomplished bassist that while all of his castmates had to train up on their instruments, Cera actually had to dumb down his playing as to not outshine them, as his character is supposed to be mediocre at, you know, all stuff.
But did you know?
My boo Brie Larson plays Envy Adams, the lead singer of The Clash at Demon Head, but this was a much more natural fit for her than most people realize because she actually started out as a pop singer with such hits as She Said.
But did you know
that Scott's inability to make decisions actually goes super deep? Like when Ramona changes her hair, Scott changes his shirt every time.
But did you know
everyone's favorite drummer, Kim Pine, was the original Nightcrawler because she blinks only a single time in the entire film, and it's right there. What's so fascinating about this film to me is just how firmly its finger is on the pulse of culture. It was so ahead of the curve that if it was made now and not the 6 years ago when it would have cost 6 times as much because everyone on the cast, most in very small roles, went on to do huge things, so they couldn't even afford the same cast now. And honestly, the only one that was already at the height of their popularity was Michael Cera, but even he couldn't save this movie from the box office thud that it made, grossing only $10 million domestic in its opening weekend and $33.5 in its domestic lifetime, barely half of its projected $60 million budget, which is a crime I've only seen duplicated by the equally disastrous opening of that one science fiction show by that Weeben guy. Weeben? Jumps Wobbin. Is that right? No? Okay. On its opening weekend, it only managed to get 5th place against The Expendables opening weekend, Eat, Pray, Love's opening weekend, The Other Guy's 2nd weekend it lost to, and Inception's 5th weekend. And no shade toward Inception, but this movie just has a lot more going on, you know, under the surface. Though they have some really interesting similarities when you think about it. They're both ensemble action movies predicated on visually inventive sequences using cutting-edge special effects. Only I think Scott Pilgrim was a bigger challenge and a more impressive accomplishment. If you thought Inception Inception had a borderline sociopathic attention to detail, then Scott Pilgrim will put your OCD into overdrive. Every scene has at least one attention to detail thing that I can't imagine more mainstream movies even considering their work this deeply. This might be the most absurd film that has gone to theaters in a long time, but in so many ways even taking the world's end into consideration, this film is the most brilliant and earnest of praise. Just because something's a comedy doesn't make it inherently not as artistic, valuable, or worthy of consideration in the upper pantheons of cinematic accomplishment. Maybe the most interesting thing about this film, one where practically every character pines after the idea that things that attain the recognition they so rightly deserve become less cool. So maybe Scott Pilgrim is supposed to languish in cult obscurity for the rest of its life because that's the one thing that makes it so cool. And there you have it. Wow, another episode done. I'm so happy that this editing behemoth is out the door, and hopefully you are enjoying it. Here's the thing that I somehow have forgot to tell you guys about for all this time. I do a podcast with Will Wheaton. I don't know why I never thought, hey, that's a thing that's probably relevant to your audience. It's called TV Crimes. You can check it out at tvcrimes.net. Basically, me and Will, we watch shows, some we've never seen before, but very old shows, and we basically try to find the worst episode of said show and then try to piece together what the show is actually about based only on the context clues in the horrible episode, like that one Murder, She Wrote in season 10 where Jessica Fletcher infiltrates a game developer and goes into VR. It's not good. And as always, I'm still trying to grow my show, so if you want to help me out, please like, share, and subscribe and all that other YouTube crap that I'm really bad at begging for, but I still kind of need. And I would be remiss, but obviously I know what you guys are waiting for. It's the 3 movies you'll be voting on for the next episode, but I'm sorry, there's not going to be 3 movies this week. There's gonna be 6! Boop, 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 boop. Oh, shit! You better get to voting.